For years, I thought the cruelest thing someone could do was lie. If you love what we do, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy diving into this deep and fascinating story. Dear listener, I was wrong. The cruelest thing is telling the same lie over and over until the people who love you start wondering if maybe it's true. It wasn't a stranger who nearly destroyed my marriage. It wasn't some jealous ex. It wasn't an online rumor. It was my own sister. And by the time I finally exposed the secret, she'd spent years praying I'd never reveal. Half my family had already chosen her side. When my daughter Lily was born, the first thing everyone noticed wasn't how tiny she was. It was her eyes. They were a brilliant shade of icy blue, the kind of blue that almost didn't look real. Neither my husband, Ethan, nor I had blue eyes. Mine were hazel. His were dark brown. The nurses smiled every time someone mentioned it. One of them laughed and explained that eye color could skip generations. My grandmother had blue eyes, I said. My grandfather did too, Ethan answered. The pediatrician nodded. Perfectly normal. That should have been the end of it. For everyone except my older sister, Claire. Lily wasn't even a month old when Claire started what she called the funniest family joke ever. We were gathered for my mother's birthday. Everyone wanted to hold the baby. My uncle was making faces. My aunt kept taking pictures. Claire looked into the stroller for less than 5 seconds before smirking. Well, she looked straight at Ethan. I guess somebody has some explaining to do. A few relatives chuckled awkwardly. I frowned. What does that mean? She shrugged. Come on, she winked. Blue eyes don't just magically appear. Silence. I expected her to laugh and admit she'd been teasing. Instead, she looked around the room as if waiting for everyone else to catch up. When no one said anything, she laughed loudly. I'm kidding, she nudged Ethan's shoulder. You people are so sensitive. Everyone relaxed, or at least they pretended to. But I noticed something. Ethan didn't laugh, not even a little. I thought she'd forget about it. Instead, she made it part of her personality. Every birthday, every barbecue, every holiday, there was always another joke, another wink, another little comment she could later dismiss as just teasing. At Thanksgiving, she handed Ethan a wrapped box. Inside was a home DNA test. The entire table burst into uncomfortable laughter. Claire grinned proudly. I figured every new dad deserves peace of mind. I stared at her. She looked genuinely pleased with herself. Mom sighed. Oh, Claire! Claire rolled her eyes. What? It was funny. No one answered. Christmas wasn't any better. While everyone gathered around the fireplace, Claire held Lily up beside an old family portrait. She tilted her head dramatically. I don't think she looks like anyone here. Then she looked directly at me. Maybe she's taking after somebody else's family. Again, the laugh, the wink, the innocent smile, always followed by the same sentence. I'm kidding. Except jokes stop being jokes when they're repeated 50 times. At first, Ethan brushed it off. He'd squeeze my hand in the car afterward. Your sister has issues. That was all he'd say. I believed him, until I noticed he started declining invitations. Do we really have to go? He'd ask. I've got work. I'm tired. Let's stay home. He never admitted why. He didn't have to. Neither of us wanted to spend another afternoon pretending Claire wasn't trying to humiliate us. The worst part wasn't Claire. It was everyone else. Nobody defended us. They'd look uncomfortable. They'd change the subject. Someone would refill drinks. Someone else would ask about football. The conversation moved on while my marriage absorbed another tiny crack. My mother always gave the same advice. You know how your sister is? Ignore her. Don't give her the reaction she wants. Easy advice. Much harder to live. Months passed. Lily learned to crawl, then walk, then laugh. Our lives should have been filled with first steps, first words, family memories. Instead, every gathering came with dread. I started losing sleep the night before holidays, wondering, what would Claire say this time? Would Ethan hear it? Would someone laugh? Would anyone finally tell her to stop? The answer was always the same. No. Then the poison spread. Not loudly. Quietly. Like smoke. Ethan's mother called one afternoon. She sounded hesitant. I don't want you to take this the wrong way. Those words are never followed by anything good. She asked whether we'd ever considered doing genetic testing, just to put everyone's mind at ease. I nearly dropped the phone. Everyone? There was a long pause. Finally, she admitted. Claire had been talking, not just at family dinners, privately, calling people, planting doubts, telling relatives she had always felt something was off. That evening, I found Ethan sitting alone on our back porch. He looked exhausted. "I need to tell you something." His voice barely carried across the yard. My mom asked if I thought Lily was really mine. The words hit harder than I expected. He rubbed both hands across his face. I told her she was crazy. Another pause. But he stopped talking. But what? He stared into the darkness. I hate that she even made me answer the question. I walked over and took his hand. "It doesn't bother you." He squeezed my fingers. "It didn't." His voice cracked. "Now I wish it still didn't." That night, neither of us slept much. Every time I woke up, Ethan was staring at the ceiling, thinking. I hated Claire more in that moment than I ever had before. Not because she'd accused me, because she'd succeeded. Not in proving anything, but in planting a single poisonous question inside the mind of the man who trusted me most. And once a question like that takes root, it doesn't need evidence, only repetition. Over the next several weeks, I caught little changes, tiny things. Ethan looking a little longer at Lily's face, comparing old baby photos, scrolling through articles about inherited traits. One afternoon, I picked up his phone to answer a timer he'd left running. A browser tab was still open. How accurate are home DNA tests? I froze. He walked into the kitchen seconds later. His face immediately fell. He knew I'd seen it. I wasn't. He sighed. I don't know what I was doing. Neither did I. But I knew exactly who had put that search into his head. And for the first time, I realized ignoring Claire hadn't protected my family. It had only given her more time, more opportunities, more victims. What I didn't know was that she had already crossed a line so unforgivable that exposing it would destroy our family forever. For the next few months, our home looked perfectly normal. Every morning, Ethan kissed Lily on the forehead before leaving for work. Every evening, he'd come home carrying groceries or flowers or some tiny stuffed animal he couldn't resist buying for her. If someone had looked through our windows, they would have seen a happy little family. They never would have guessed that a single lie had taken up permanent residence in our house. Not because we believed it, because we were exhausted from fighting it. Claire had mastered something I'd never understood before. She didn't attack all at once. She attacked in intervals, just long enough for us to relax, just long enough to think maybe she'd finally moved on. Then, another joke, another text, another social media post, another whisper to another relative. It was like living beneath a leaking ceiling. Not enough rain to flood the house, just enough to make everything slowly rot. One Saturday afternoon, my cousin Melissa called. Her voice sounded strange. "Natalie, there's something you need to see." 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Screenshots. A family group chat I wasn't part of. The title read, "Concerned about Lily." I felt sick before I even opened it. Claire had written paragraph after paragraph. She claimed I'd been acting secretive during my pregnancy. She hinted that I'd become too friendly with someone from work. She insisted she'd noticed little clues that everyone else had ignored. There wasn't a single fact, only suggestions, questions, implications. But that was enough. One relative replied, "Honestly, I wondered too." Another added, "The blue eyes are definitely unusual." Someone else wrote, "Poor Ethan, poor Ethan." Not, "Poor Natalie," not, "Poor Lily, poor Ethan." As if I were already guilty, I kept scrolling. Each message made my stomach twist tighter. Claire wasn't joking anymore. She was writing a script. And little by little, people were helping her finish it. I couldn't breathe. Melissa finally texted again. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." That night I showed Ethan every screenshot. He read them in complete silence. When he finished, he simply locked his phone and stared out the living room window. I thought it was just Claire. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "It isn't." I reached for him. "It is. They're just listening to her." He shook his head. "But they're listening." That hurt more than either of us wanted to admit. After that, family invitations became impossible. Every birthday felt like a trap. Every cookout felt like an interrogation. Every holiday carried the same question. What will happen this time? Sometimes Ethan stayed home. Sometimes I stayed home with Lily. Sometimes we both went, only to regret it before dessert. The worst gathering happened at my nephew's baptism. The ceremony itself was beautiful. The reception wasn't. While I was helping my aunt carry trays into the kitchen, Claire cornered Ethan near the hallway. I didn't hear the conversation. I only saw his face afterward. Gray. Shaken. He insisted he was fine. Weeks later, he finally admitted what she'd said. She'd leaned close enough that no one else could hear, then smiled. Are you really going to spend your whole life raising another man's child? Just one sentence. Quiet, almost gentle, yet it echoed in our marriage for months. I wanted to confront her. Every instinct screamed at me to end it, but my mother begged me not to. Please, not today. You know your sister? If you fight back, she'll only make herself the victim. So I stayed quiet, again. Looking back, that was my biggest mistake. Bullies don't interpret silence as maturity. They interpret it as permission. Summer came. Lily was almost 2. She adored bubbles. She laughed whenever Ethan chased her around the backyard, pretending to be a dinosaur. Those moments reminded me why we kept trying, why we kept hoping things would improve. Then Claire would send another message, or post another joke, and we'd be dragged back under. One afternoon, Ethan admitted something he'd never told me before. His mother wasn't the only person asking questions anymore. His younger brother had started comparing baby pictures. A coworker had heard the rumors through someone's cousin. Even neighbors had begun making awkward comments. Claire had managed to spread lies beyond our own family. She'd built momentum. Momentum doesn't care whether it's carrying truth or lies. Then came Thanksgiving. The holiday that finally convinced me my sister wasn't simply cruel. She enjoyed cruelty. Everyone was seated around the table when Claire walked in carrying a brightly wrapped package. She smiled at Lily. This one's for you. I should have stopped my daughter from opening it. Instead, I watched. Inside, another DNA kit. This one wrapped in pink ribbon. Claire laughed before anyone else could react. I figured toddlers deserve answers too. Silence swallowed the dining room. No one laughed. Not even the relatives who usually defended her. Ethan slowly stood. His chair scraped across the hardwood floor. He looked at Claire, then at me. Without saying a word, he walked out of the house. I found him sitting inside our car. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, I hate her. His voice cracked. Then something happened that terrified me. I also hate. He swallowed hard, that a tiny part of me wants to make this stop forever. I knew what he meant before he said it. The test, he nodded. I know she's my daughter. I know, but I don't know how to shut my brain off anymore. Tears rolled down his face. I hate myself for even saying that. Seeing him cry shattered something inside me. This wasn't doubt. This was psychological exhaustion. Months of manipulation had finally done what logic never could. It had made certainty feel fragile. We drove home without eating. Neither of us touched dinner. After Lily fell asleep, we sat together in complete silence. Then my phone buzzed. Claire, you guys seriously need to lighten up. Another message. If you've got nothing to hide, why does a DNA test bother you? Another. Honestly, Ethan deserves the truth. I blocked her. She emailed instead. I blocked that too. Then she started tagging me on social media, posting articles about genetics, making memes, sharing photos of blue-eyed celebrities with captions like, family resemblance? People laughed. People reacted. People shared. She wasn't trying to convince me anymore. She was building an audience. By Christmas, our marriage had changed. Not because we stopped loving each other, because we were both carrying the same invisible weight. We argued over dishes, laundry, groceries, bills. Things that had nothing to do with Claire. Except they had everything to do with Claire. Neither of us had any strength left. One evening, I found Ethan standing in Lily's bedroom. She was asleep. He was quietly brushing a strand of hair away from her face. I've never loved anyone this much. He didn't look at me. And that's exactly why I'm scared. He finally turned. I don't want one person's lies to become the story our daughter grows up inside. Neither did I. But I still believed time would solve it. I couldn't have been more wrong. Because Claire had already planned one final joke. One she believed would finally break us. She chose Lily's second birthday party. And she had absolutely no idea that by the end of that afternoon, I'd exposed the one secret she'd spent years making sure no one ever discovered. By the time Lily's second birthday arrived, I wasn't excited. I was nervous. That realization broke my heart. A child's birthday should feel magical. Instead, I spent the entire morning wondering how my own sister would try to ruin it. We'd made one thing perfectly clear. Claire wasn't invited. Everyone knew it. Mom knew it. My cousins knew it. Even Claire knew it. Or so I thought. The party was small, just close family. A few neighbors, children running through the backyard with balloons tied around their wrists. Lily spent 20 minutes chasing bubbles while Ethan laughed louder than I had heard him laugh in months. For one afternoon, it felt like our family was finally breathing again. I should have known peace never lasted when Claire was involved. The doorbell rang halfway through lunch. When I opened it, there she was, holding a brightly wrapped gift, smiling as though nothing had ever happened. I figured you'd cool off eventually. You figured wrong. I stepped into the doorway. We didn't invite you. She looked genuinely offended. So you're really going to keep your own sister away from her niece? My daughter? My house. My decision. Several relatives had noticed the conversation and drifted toward the entryway. Claire saw the audience gathering. That smile widened. She loved an audience. I just came to drop off a present. She held the gift toward me. It would be cruel to send me away. Mom quietly whispered, maybe just let her leave the gift. I should have listened to myself instead. I stepped aside. Big mistake. Claire walked in as if she owned the place. Within minutes, she was laughing with relatives, complimenting decorations, acting like the perfect aunt. Anyone who hadn't witnessed the past 2 years would have believed she was harmless. Then Lily reached for the present. Claire clapped her hands. Oh, open mine first. I felt my stomach tighten. Ethan looked at me from across the room. He had the same expression. We both knew. Whatever was inside, it wasn't a gift. Lily tore away the wrapping paper. Inside was a tiny white t-shirt. Across the front, in huge black letters, it read, "Still waiting for the DNA results. Silence. Utter silence. No laughter. No awkward chuckles. Even the children seemed to stop moving. Ethan stared at the shirt for several seconds, then quietly picked Lily up into his arms. Without saying a word, he walked down the hallway. A moment later, I heard our bedroom door close. Then the lock clicked. Claire laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my goodness. You people seriously can't take a joke. That was it. 2 years of swallowing my anger. 2 years of pretending to be the bigger person. 2 years of watching my husband slowly lose confidence. Something inside me finally snapped. I walked toward her. Slowly. Very calmly. So that's your funniest joke? She folded her arms. I thought it was pretty good. You've spent 2 years trying to destroy my marriage. Oh, please. I was teasing. No, you were campaigning. Her smile faded. I looked around the room. Every relative was watching. Nobody interrupted. Nobody looked away. You've lied to this family. You've spread rumors. You've turned my husband against himself. You've convinced people to question my daughter. Claire rolled her eyes. If your marriage was that fragile. I cut her off. My marriage survived. What won't survive, I paused, is your secret. For the first time all afternoon, her expression changed, only slightly. But I saw it. Fear. What secret? Her voice sounded different, less confident. I took one more step, the one about Dad. The color drained from her face. Nobody else understood. Yet. Mom frowned. What are you talking about? Claire forced a laugh. She's making things up. I ignored her. You really want to keep humiliating my family? Or should we talk about what happened during Dad's last months? Claire whispered. Don't. It was almost inaudible, but I heard it. You remember. I remember too. She shook her head. I don't know what you're talking about. I looked straight into her eyes. What happened to the money? The room froze. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. You stole from him, her mouth opened. Nothing came out. You forged his signature while he was dying. Mom gasped. Someone dropped a glass in the kitchen. It shattered. Still, no one spoke. Claire finally found her voice. You're insane. I'm not. I found the records. I kept copies. I kept quiet because Mom had already lost her husband. I refused to destroy this family while we were grieving. And do you know what you did with my silence? I pointed toward the little birthday shirt. You used it to destroy mine. Claire took a step backward, then another. You're lying. I wish I were. I have every document. The bank statements, the forged signatures, the insurance paperwork. Everything. Her breathing became uneven. For the first time in years, she wasn't smiling. Mom looked between us, confused, terrified. Natalie, is this true? I slowly nodded. I was going to tell you someday. I kept hoping I'd never have to. Claire suddenly rushed toward the front door. She grabbed her purse. You people are crazy. I'm leaving. I didn't stop her. Neither did anyone else. She practically ran to her car. Mom watched from the doorway. Claire dropped her keys twice before finally getting inside. Seconds later, she sped away. No dramatic goodbye. No sarcastic comment. No joke. Just panic. When I turned back around, the room looked completely different. People weren't staring at me anymore. They were staring at the empty driveway, as though they had finally seen the person Claire really was. Mom quietly asked, "Can you show me? I can, and I will." That evening, after everyone had gone home, Ethan finally unlocked the bedroom door. Lily was asleep against his shoulder. He looked exhausted. He sat beside me on the couch. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry. I looked at him." I let her into my head. You didn't. She forced her way in. He lowered his eyes. I should have protected you. I squeezed his hand. We protect each other now. He nodded. For the first time in almost 2 years, there were no jokes, no whispers, no accusations, only silence, the kind of silence that finally felt like peace. The next morning, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire's face. Not the smug smile she'd worn for the past 2 years, the terrified one she'd worn as she backed out of my house. For the first time in a long time, she hadn't looked like the person in control. At 7:30, my phone rang. Mom. I knew exactly why she was calling. Her voice sounded older somehow. I need to see those documents. I'll bring them. No, I'll come to you. An hour later, she sat at our kitchen table while Ethan quietly took Lily outside to play in the yard. Neither of us wanted our daughter anywhere near the conversation we were about to have. I unlocked the fireproof box we'd kept in our bedroom closet for years. Inside was a thick manila envelope. I'd hidden it there after Dad's funeral. Every time I'd considered throwing it away, something stopped me. Now I understood why. Mom slowly opened the envelope. The first pages were bank statements, large withdrawals, electronic transfers, checks, each one made out to Claire, each one dated during Dad's final months in hospice. Mom frowned. He couldn't have signed these. I nodded. You remember. She closed her eyes. Dad's Parkinson's had become so severe near the end that even signing birthday cards had become impossible. I'd watched him struggle to write a single sentence. His hands shook so violently that he often gave up halfway through. Yet somehow, these checks carried neat, steady signatures, almost perfect, too perfect. Mom turned another page, then another. Finally, she found the insurance paperwork, the beneficiary form. She stared at it for nearly a minute. Her hands began trembling. I never signed this. You weren't supposed to. She looked at me. This says, I know. The policy that Dad had always promised would take care of Mom had suddenly been transferred. Everything listed Claire as the sole beneficiary. 3 weeks before he died, Mom began crying, not quietly, not gracefully. The kind of crying that comes from discovering someone has stolen more than money. They've stolen trust, memories, the image of someone you thought you knew. I kept asking myself, she whispered, why the insurance company kept delaying everything. They weren't delaying it. They were processing fraudulent paperwork. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you tell me? I asked myself that question every day. I wanted to. I almost did. But we just buried Dad. You were barely getting out of bed. The family was falling apart. My voice cracked. I thought protecting everyone was the right thing. Mom reached across the table and took my hands. No, she shook her head. You protected the wrong person. Those words hit harder than anything she'd said all morning. Because deep down, I already knew they were true. By lunchtime, the phone had started ringing. Apparently, word about yesterday's confrontation had spread through the family overnight. My uncle called first, then 2 cousins, then an aunt. Every conversation started exactly the same way. What happened? I gave them the same answer every time. If you want the truth, talk to Mom. I wasn't interested in defending myself anymore. I'd spent 2 years doing that. The evidence could speak now. Late that afternoon, Ethan came inside carrying Lily on his shoulders. She was giggling, completely unaware that our family had just exploded. Watching her laugh reminded me why I'd finally spoken up. Not for revenge, for her. She deserved to grow up in a family where lies weren't rewarded with silence. That evening, there was another knock at the door. It was Ethan's mother, Susan. She looked nervous, almost embarrassed. I owe you an apology. I invited her in. She didn't sit. She stood in the middle of our living room, twisting her wedding ring. I let your sister get into my head. I questioned my own son. I questioned you. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I could see genuine shame in her eyes. Not the performative kind, the real kind. I forgive you. Her shoulders relaxed. But things have to change. They will. She nodded immediately. I promise. 2 days later, the DNA kit arrived. Neither Ethan nor I had mentioned it since the birthday party. But there it was, a small white box sitting on our front porch. Neither of us moved to pick it up. It sat there for nearly an hour. Finally, Ethan walked outside, carried it into the kitchen, set it on the table, then just stared at it. I hate this. I know. I hate that I'm even opening it. I know. His eyes filled with tears. But I can't keep hearing her voice every time I look at Lily. We completed the test together. Neither of us spoke much. Lily giggled because she thought the cotton swabs were a game. She had no idea those tiny swabs represented nearly 2 years of manipulation. We sealed the samples, mailed them that afternoon, then began waiting. Those next 4 days felt strangely quiet, almost peaceful. Claire never called, never texted, never posted online. She had vanished. At first, I thought she'd finally given up. Then my cousin Melissa called. She's not giving up. What do you mean? She's telling everyone you forged the bank records. I closed my eyes. Of course she was. Melissa continued. She's saying you're making all of it up because you're embarrassed about getting caught. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because I'd finally realized something. Claire couldn't survive without another lie. Whenever the truth cornered her, she simply invented a bigger story. The 4th morning arrived. An email notification appeared on Ethan's phone, the lab results. Neither of us opened them immediately. Instead, we sat beside each other at the kitchen table holding hands. I already know, Ethan whispered. So do I. Then why am I scared? Because lies leave scars, he nodded. Then opened the email. The report loaded. One line stood out immediately. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. For several seconds, neither of us said a word. Then Ethan broke. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. Not because he was surprised, because the guilt he'd carried for months finally came crashing down all at once. I'm so sorry. He kept repeating it. I'm so sorry. I wrapped my arms around him. I know. I should have trusted you. You wanted to. She just kept. He couldn't finish. He didn't have to. We both knew. Claire hadn't tried to prove I was unfaithful. She'd tried to make Ethan doubt himself. And for a while, she'd succeeded. That afternoon, Ethan drove to a craft store. When he came home, he was carrying a black picture frame. I watched him carefully slide the DNA results inside. You want to hang it up? He nodded. In Lily's room. I looked at him, surprised. He smiled sadly. Not because I need proof. He looked toward the nursery. Because I never want to forget what happens when good people stay quiet while cruel people keep talking. He hung the frame beside Lily's growth chart, then stood there holding our daughter, looking at both of them for a long time. He wasn't looking at proof. He was looking at a promise that no one would ever be allowed to poison our family like that again. 3 days later, Mom called. Her voice was steady. "The police have opened an investigation." I closed my eyes. "So it's real now." "It always was." She paused. "I just finally stopped pretending it wasn't."